Hello and welcome this beautiful Friday morning to Market Insights, and happy new month to you. It's the end of the week and the beginning of a new month. So during the week, on Monday 26th February, on Tuesday 27th February, the 293rd meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee took place at the Central Bank of Nigeria headquarters in Abuja. My guests speculated and made suggestions concerning what the committee should do to curb inflation and the foreign exchange rates. So on Wednesday, the committee released a policy communique to share the decisions they made at the meeting with the public. The Central Bank of Nigeria Governor, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, held a press conference to that effect and announced the increase in the monetary policy rate. It was raised from 18.75% to 22.75%. Now, the effect of this new interest rate on the economy, on commercial banks, small and medium enterprises, and the common man. In addition, we went further to discuss with an investment banker and a chartered stockbroker how the personal finances of the common man will be affected by the new interest rates, coupled with the rising inflation. Now, on the first day of a new month, the inflation situation is still affecting Nigerians, and everyone is looking for a way to protect their finances. So on today's show, I will discuss with my guests the opportunities and challenges with the high interest rates. We've seen a lot of situations that people have posted on social media, with people protesting, in some cases, people rushing for food en masse in any situation or anywhere they can get food at cheaper prices. So today's show, I'm discussing with the Director for Policy and Research, Center for Public Policy, Mr. Sam Orovwuje. Welcome to the show, Mr. Sam.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on Market Insight this morning, and happy new month to you. This outfit is a lovely outfit, really suits your skin tone.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, so I mentioned this new interest rates. We know a lot of small and medium enterprises might be affected by this because in the event they seek loans from banks, we know they'll also be affected by this situation. So do you foresee more economic cuts in smaller companies, like companies folding up? Do you foresee job losses for more Nigerians, in addition to the high inflation and also food inflation, which is not relenting at the moment? Your thoughts, Mr. Sam?
Thank you very much indeed. The Central Bank, in a few days ago, released what they call Circular 150 after the aftermath of the Monetary Policy Committee, MPC. They came up with some increase in terms of the MPRO. The MPRO is monetary policy rate at which the Central Bank lend money to commercial bank, from 18.75% to about 22.75%. It will have implication for commercial bank lending, microfinance bank lending, and by extension, the way small and medium enterprise will fare under that regime. So the implication, therefore, is if the central bank is going to lend to the commercial bank at the rate of 22.5%,
yes.
That is the rate at which the CBN, though there's a window in terms of how the commercial bank will play, by implication, the lending rate will move upward because the cost of funds will increase. And this will have implications for lending to the real sector, even though that window, when it was 18.75%, the window of lending is over 26 point something percent. So with this increase, there's a likelihood that the percentage will increase, and it will affect small and medium enterprise in terms of how they're able to operate. Then if you translate it to the common man or the average man on the street, it's going to be difficult because the cost of living is already high. So the CBN, with this new policy initiative, will have some implication while an attempt is being made to control the rate of the inflation and food inflation in particular. Then this portends some little danger for the common man on the street. But Like I said elsewhere, it is too early in the day to make some judgment. Let's see how the market and the banks will react to this new policy initiative by the central bank. But I think that window in terms of lending is likely to affect us negatively. But then a committee that is made up of 12 men and whatever research data there was.
Women on that committee.
Yeah, when I use men, I just use in a generic sense. I'm gender sensitive, so don't worry. Men and women, to make you happy. Men and women. All right. So that is too early in the day, and let's see how that manifests. Within another 26 days, another MPC meeting will take place.
This month,
yeah, let's see how that review we see, but too early in the day to see how the market will react to it. But in terms of cost of fund, that will increase, and the bank will find a way to put other hidden charges in terms of their lending portfolio, which will be translated to consumers at the end of the day. So it's not uhuru yet with this policy option.
Well, well, yes, I totally share your thoughts on that matter. But we all know that we've heard during the week, we also heard the president of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, where he stated that he was going to implement a new report called the Orovwuje report, in which he's going to cut down on the cost of government or governance, and he's also going to merge some ministries together, so we don't have too many government parastatals. Let everything be under one body, fewer of these ministries, so that we can actually manage the cost of governing Nigeria. Well, we haven't really seen these things being, apart from, yes, he mentioned he's going to implement it by merging ministries, but we are yet to see that. We also saw that during the inauguration yesterday of the rail line, the president was in Lagos State. We saw a lot of convoys attached to the president when he was coming in. And also, in addition to other things we've seen in governance, how they move on with large convoys. And we expect that this reduction in the cost of governance will also affect our federal government, in terms of the fact that they should also move on to using made in Nigerian vehicles, if I'm allowed to say that, instead of importing vehicles, so that we can have more circulation of the naira moving in the economy. So how do you think the federal government is going to create an enabling environment for Nigerians? Because over these few weeks, since last month till this new month, we have not seen any relenting of this new inflation. It's not going back. Prices keep moving up every day. What you hear on Monday is different from what you hear on Wednesday. What do you suggest that the federal government should do to create a more stabilizing environment for Nigerians, not just business-wise, but in terms of feeding, in terms of how you could purchase things that you need for your household every day? Mr. Sam.
I think the government has put a policy option in place in terms of how to reduce the size of governance. The committee has about 12 weeks to put that in place. So it's a welcome development where the cost of governance, not just in terms of the structure and the alignment or realignment of parastatals, agencies, ministries and departments of government. We must equally see that in the behavioral pattern of those who are in leadership, just beyond putting those ministries together. To what extent can the revenue that is saved from this restructuring or reform in the public sector can bring to government? And we did see that the money that was saved from the fuel subsidy is being translated to the share of money or revenue that accrued to state. But then we have not seen the impact. Some states had some rise in their allocation.
They mentioned putting palliatives to Nigerians. We've also
so let's see how those palliative work on the one hand. On the other hand, the government must be disciplined in terms of the way they conduct themselves. The money or revenues or the expenditure, public expenditure, must equally be minimized to such extent that when you go to the field to monitor the impact of the resources in terms of loan, in terms of revenue, those who are involved in monitoring and evaluation, always say there's a difference of between 60 and 40% in terms of performance. So what happened to that 60%? So the issues of corruption, the institutional reform must be seen so that whatever savings that the government is making, it should impart on citizens directly. So it's beyond making public statement, public policy statement. So those policy statements must translate into reality and see how those savings that are made can impart on citizens. On the other hand, the government must find a way to see how lending can be reduced to a one-digit figure so that that can benefit small and medium enterprise, which are the real engine of growth, which are the real enabler, which are the facilitator in terms of how economic activities can enhance productivity. Once that's happened, then the government can increase in their revenue in terms of the tax that they will get from these small and medium enterprises, because they are really the major driver of the economy. So if you're able to manage those policy options, then over time, then the cost of living will reduce tremendously. Then we're able to see that the banks equally lend to the real sector so that it can energize the economy for sustainable development and growth.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Yes, government has to be more accountable to the people. They need to also, in the future, hopefully we can reduce this inflation to be a single-digit inflation, hopefully. And government actually needs to put in not just talking, but there should be an action. We need to see more government officials reducing the cost of governance. We need to actually see that physical things going on. But in recent times, there have been arguments both for and against this increase in the interest rates. Some people have said, yes, it will help to curb inflation. Other people have said, no, it would not help. I just want to know your thoughts on this. Do you really think the central bank's monitoring policy committee's decision to actually increase the interest rate, do you really think, are you for or against this argument that it will curb inflation or it will not curb inflation?
That's a bit a tricky question, but I will attempt it from this way. Whether the committee circular in terms of the monetary policy rate, in terms of cash reserve ratios, in terms of liquidity ratio, and all those policy options. What is important beyond those statements is that the government, particularly the central bank, on the monetary side, must find a way to supervise the banks so that some of those infractions, particularly from foreign exchange rascality, permit my word, that has taken place in the last 10 years in that sector will be minimized. So, in addition, the bank must be supervised thoroughly, and once there are infraction into some of these monetary policy options, the banks should be penalized in a way that to serve as deterrent to some other banks. That will help in trying to see how we can manage. On the fiscal side, the government will find a way to see how multiple taxation and some of those leakages on the side of the government are blocked so that they can translate into savings and revenue from the government. So if we have a balance on the fiscal side, taxation, then on the other hand, the social intervention, which the government has promised, and they appropriately get to the right people in the communities, that will help to foster those challenges. So the dysfunction in the foreign exchange market in particular, particularly our dependence on import, must equally be looked at so that if we don't depend so much on imported items, we're able to free some money in terms of foreign exchange, and we consume made in Nigerian products so that we can reflate the economy and everybody can benefit. Then inflation can come down, the cost of living can reduce. So it has to be holistic. The citizen has the responsibility in trying to do what I call citizen diplomacy, a kind of public advocacy, advocacy engagement from civil society groups, a community-based association to put the government in check, transparency, accountability, which you mentioned earlier, they are critical to good governance.
Okay, yes, yes, Mr. Sam is still here with me. He has definitely given us some very important points as to how these new directives can actually benefit the common man that we see today. We have seen videos of people protesting, people actually, if there's a situation where we also saw recently the video at the Nigerian Customs office at Yaba, where some people were trampled upon in a stampede in the rush to get basic commodities like rice. So we know for the common Nigerian on the streets, it's quite a difficult period for them right now with this inflation and with, in some cases, with the scarcity of certain food items that we actually need. It's really affecting us. So yes, we have seen that the federal government keeps every now and then, they keep coming up with new directives, new measures to actually curb this situation, release grains from the storage, reduce the cost of it, patronize, like my guest rightfully said, made in Nigeria food products. Let's improve our local production also. But in terms of fiscal policy, we're talking about our roads, the situation with insecurity, which has been on for years right now, and also how it's affecting farmers' outputs, their production outputs actually. How do we actually solve this matter? If you can actually give us your thoughts on this, Mr. Sam, because over the past few years, insecurity has been a major challenge for us in Nigeria. Farmers have been complaining about, there's the headers crisis, there's also the kidnapping issues going on, and apart from that, the bad roads, some local food producers have complained about how long it takes them on journeys moving from northern Nigeria to the southern parts of the country, and we've been appealing to our government to repair these roads to avoid these types of situations, because it's heavy losses to the producers of these foods and also to the end consumers who can't get these items when they need it the most. It's also a big loss to them too. So what can you actually, if you can just give us your thoughts on this, Mr. Sam?
All right, there's a direct relationship between conflict and the poverty and unemployment. So the case of security and insecurity has had negative impact in terms of our food security. Farmers, particularly in the north, don't have access to their farm. So if you cannot cultivate, you cannot get a yield, and you cannot bring food to the market. So what the government needs to do is to look at the security architecture, always called security sector reform, SSR, where you think about how you can look at the entire security sector throughput, looking at police, looking at judicial reform, looking at armed forces reforms, so that some of the drivers of conflict, particularly poverty, in the north, lack of access to education are addressed. So once you're able to reduce that, that will help, because a higher level of education will reduce the level of people that can be recruited into terrorism, yes, into kidnapping, into banditry. So we need to do a thorough security sector reform, SSR. The justice administration system must be improved upon as well, where people can be brought to justice, particularly criminal gangs, yes, that are in contention with the state. Once you're able to bring people to book, then you reform the security sector in a way that poverty, insecurity are addressed. Then you're able to have more people being productive. People can access their farm. So once that productivity is enhanced, that will increase the economic output, in addition to the general national productivity. Yes. Then food security will be sustained and everybody will be better for it.
Yes, yes. I also want to mention that the president also talked about state governments having the right to have their own security, because insecurity in our different states has been going on for a very long time. This insecurity factor is something that has really affected Nigerians, especially our farmers, who keep complaining of how they have been attacked on their farms. So we know, yes, the president also approved the use of forest rangers to combat insecurity and banditry on in the forest, and also to provide security to farmers also. But do we actually need to look at the local governments also creating their own setup for security, actually? Because insecurity is something that, if it's not effectively curbed, it will actually affect us more in terms of our food production, and we are looking at Nigeria being able to sufficiently feed itself before we can start exporting food items. So if we can't achieve this by actually improving on our food production as a nation, it's not going to be possible for us to export food. And this food exportation will also help us to not so depend all the time on our oil reserves and oil and gas reserves, because we know we're not really looking at, there are some predictions of oil drying up in a few years' time. Some climate observers have also predicted that with some natural resources. So we have to also look away from dependency on oil to our agricultural sector, and insecurity is something that has been a very big challenge there. Yes, I know that the government has provided these items for us in the past, but your thoughts on this, please, Mr. Sam, as a researcher, how do we actually combat this? Because your suggestions will go a long way for this.
I think the government had, I think, a Council of State meeting recently.
Yes.
When there's a proposal for state policing. I think we've been on this trajectory for too long a time because of the politics of it. First and foremost, let's the subnational government, the state and the local government be up and doing in this regard. It's open, so let's find a way how they can recalibrate some of the civil defense mechanism, what they call vigilante in the state, how they can reform them and form a proper policing system. Then that again will enhance the territorial dimension of the state. That's federalism, where there's a devolution of power between the center and the subnational to have different responsibilities. So this political fear that governors, local government chairmen will use the state or local government police to their own advantage, I don't share in that sentiment. Let them have their own policing, see how they can provide additional intelligence to see how we can nip this danger of terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, because if we don't do that, the state cannot function appropriately. And the challenge in terms of the cost of living, the insecurity will continue to fester. But the subnational government must look at this window that is now open and see how they can address this issue. We equally want the subnational government to be creative, to be innovative in terms of the governance architecture that they run at the state, rather than just to run to Abuja and go and share some money, and when those money comes, they feel so big, and that does not impact on the citizens. So they must be creatively thinking of their factor endowment. What are the resource endowment that are peculiar to the state that can be exploited through a PP arrangement, private-public sector arrangement that will sustain the revenue profile of each of the states. We have what it takes as a country, but the challenge, even though there's a debate that leadership is not a problem, leadership is really a problem, even the followership has a responsibility. Let's see the state government rolling their sleeves and go to work for their people and find a way of providing employment based on the endowment, the resources beyond the oil and gas that everybody is depending on, and they just feel good and go to Abuja as big boys. When they come back, they share the money among their cronies, and at the end of the day, they cry again that their states they are not the chief security officer. Now the window is there. Let them cash in on that moment and see how they can improve so that it's better for the citizens.
Yes, okay, yes. Thank you for that, Mr. Sam. Yes, I'm still here with my guest, Mr. Sam, who is the Director for Policy Research at the Center for Public Policy. And we're actually looking at everything that went on in this current week from Monday till today and how the interest rates by the Central Bank of Nigeria, how it's going to be affecting the common man on the streets and also affecting small and medium enterprises.